In late February of 2026, the price of urea fertilizer jumped from around $450 a ton to over $700 in 3 weeks. The Strait of Hormuz closed after the strikes on Iran. 49% of the world's traded urea moves through that region. 48% of American farmers told the Farm Bureau in writing that they cannot afford full fertilizer for the 2026 crop year. In the South, that number jumps to 78%. Corn acres are already projected to fall. The United Nations World Food Program is warning that 360 million people face acute food insecurity this year, with tens of millions at risk of famine. That's the part you see on the news. Here is the part you don't see. The serious preppers, the ones who've been doing this quietly for 10, 20, 30 years, are not posting their food lists online. The lists you find on YouTube, on Reddit, on prepper blogs are mostly designed to sell you buckets of freeze-dried slop at $20 a pound. The real ones buy in bulk, store quietly, and the foods they actually rely on average about 0.04 of a cent per calorie. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 14 foods that the people who actually know what they're doing are buying right now, before the urea crisis cascades into the food chain over the next 12 to 24 months. Some are obvious, some are buried. The 14th one is the one almost nobody talks about, and the one that matters most. Quick note before we go in, everything I'm covering today, the storage methods, the rotation rules, the protein math, the seed banking, the nitrogen fixing strategies, is documented in detail in the survival research dossier linked in the description. If you want the full reference while we go through this, it's there. Back to the foods. Let me give you the framework first, because this is where most online prepper lists fall apart. The 14 foods I'm covering fall into 4 categories, and you need balance across all 4. Category 1 is calorie carbohydrates, the foods that keep you alive day to day. Wheat, rice, oats, corn, barley. Category 2 is protein, with one specific subset that matters enormously right now, nitrogen-fixing legumes. These are the foods that the urea crisis cannot touch at the storage level because they are already grown, and at the regrowth level, because legumes pull nitrogen from the air through bacteria in their roots. They do not need synthetic fertilizer. Category 3 is preservation and morale, salt, sugar, honey, vinegar, oil, the foods that make other foods edible and last longer. Category 4 is the meta food, the one that nobody on YouTube talks about. We will get there at the end. Number 1, hard red winter wheat berries. Not flour, not bread. The whole intact wheat berry, sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers, stored cool and dark. The University of Georgia. Extension Service classifies wheat berries with moisture below 10% as having effectively unlimited shelf life. $30 buys 50 pounds, about 75,000 calories at less than 0.04 of a cent per calorie. Wheat flour, by contrast, lasts about a year because the oils in the germ go rancid. The serious preppers buy the berries and grind as needed with a hand mill. They never broadcast it, because the moment everyone runs to buy wheat berries, the price triples. Let me tell you a quick story. Ron is 58, lives outside Sandpoint, Idaho. Carpenter for 40 years, built his current cabin himself. 7 acres, off-grid for 9 years now. His wife Janet passed in 2017. His kids are grown and on the coast. When he went off-grid, he had the basics handled. Solar, water from the well, wood heat. What he didn't have was Janet's knowledge. Janet had grown up on a farm in Montana. She knew how to put up tomatoes, how to cure pork, how to run a real root cellar with airflow and humidity control. She knew which grains paired with which beans, why honey was different from sugar. Ron had eaten the food his whole adult life. He had never paid attention to how it got made. The first winter alone, he tried to preserve a deer. He did it wrong. 3/4 of the meat was unsafe by January. He threw it out. 40 hours of butchering gone because he didn't know what he didn't know. The next spring he bought what the prepper YouTube channels were selling. Almost $1,400 in freeze-dried buckets. Most of it was sugar and starch with industrial packaging. He calculated the cost per calorie after the fact. It was roughly 30 times more expensive than what Janet would have done. A friend in town, a woman who'd grown up Mennonite, gave him the documentation as a gift. Ron read the section on traditional preservation twice. Most of it was things he'd watched Janet do, finally explained on paper. The salt cure ratios, the drying times, the cellar conditions. The fact that his cellar was too dry by about 15% humidity, which explained why his potatoes had gone soft by February. The math on why wheat berries plus pinto beans plus rendered fat plus salt is the most calorie-efficient food system ever devised by any culture, anywhere. Today, April 2026, Ron is into year 4 of running his property the way Janet would have. His pantry is not a marketing photo. It is buckets of grain, jars of beans, salt-cured pork, honey from his own bees, vinegar he made himself, and seeds. He didn't become her. He became someone who could read the knowledge she carried and apply it. The complete documentation costs less than what Ron lost in that first ruined deer. 7 days money-back guarantee. Link in the description. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't. Back to the foods, continuing. Quick note before we move on. If you want the actual storage protocols, Mylar bag thickness, oxygen absorber sizing, the rotation system, moisture testing, it's all laid out step by step in the dossier linked in the description. Same documentation Ron used. Back to the list. Number 2, white rice, long grain, not brown. Brown rice has an oily bran layer that goes rancid in 6 to 12 months. White rice, bran removed, lasts 30 years, sealed in Mylar. The Mormon Church has been documenting this for over a century. 25 pounds gives you 40,000 calories for $20. Combined with beans, complete protein. Serious preppers don't share this online because they don't want their local Costco running out of bulk bags every time a headline runs. Number 3, pinto beans, dry, in bulk, 30-pound bags. Pinto beans store 30 years sealed properly. Here is the part that ties directly into the urea crisis. Pinto beans, like all legumes, fix their own nitrogen from the atmosphere through symbiotic bacteria in their roots. They do not need synthetic urea fertilizer to grow. If the global urea supply collapses for 2 years, beans are the crop that most easily survives the disruption. The price of pinto beans will be one of the slowest staples to rise in the cascade, but the smart money is buying now, while it's still under $1 a pound at warehouse stores. Number 4, lentils, specifically red split lentils. Overlooked on most prepper lists because lentils were never a major American staple. But lentils are the survivalist's secret weapon for one reason. They do not require soaking. Beans require 8 hours of soaking plus an hour of cooking. Red lentils cook in 15 minutes flat, no soaking. When fuel is scarce, that matters. Also a nitrogen-fixing legume, so the same urea immunity applies. The Mediterranean and Middle Eastern preppers, the people who went through the Lebanese Civil War, the Syrian collapse, the Iranian sanctions, will tell you that lentils kept their families alive, while everyone else was lined up for bread. Number 5. Steel-cut oats, not rolled, not quick, steel-cut. The whole oat groat chopped into pieces with the bran and germ still attached. Rolled oats are steamed and pressed, exposing more surface area to oxidation. Steel-cut oats sealed in Mylar will last 30 years. Rolled oats give you maybe 10 to 15. If you're building a 30-year stockpile, you buy steel-cut, and you grind your own rolled oats fresh when needed. Same logic as wheat berries versus flour. The breakfast morale value of actual hot oatmeal in a long-term crisis is genuinely underrated. Number 6, pearl barley. The one almost nobody talks about. The polished form of barley grain with the outer hull removed. Stores 30 years sealed, costs less than rice per pound, and it has a unique property. Barley is the easiest grain in the world to malt. You sprout it, you dry it, you crush it, and you have malted barley, the foundation of brewing, baking, and traditional fermentation. In a long-term crisis where commercial yeast is unavailable, malted barley is how you make sourdough rise, how you brew beer, how you make vinegar from grain. The Romans built their empire on barley. The Soviet Union held together through 3 famines because of it. Number 7, raw unfiltered honey. Not the squeeze bottle from the grocery store. Real honey from a local apiary in glass jars, unheated, unfiltered, with the natural enzymes intact. Honey does not expire. Period. Archaeologists have opened sealed honey jars from Egyptian pharaoh tombs that were 3,000 years old, and the honey was still edible. Honey is also naturally antimicrobial. In a crisis, honey is calories, antiseptic, wound dressing, sweetener, and trade currency. Buy it now while local beekeepers are still operating at scale. Number 8, salt. Unrefined sea salt or Redmond real salt mined from ancient seabeds in Utah. Iodized table salt works too, but the trace mineral profile is narrower. Salt does not expire. In a crisis, salt is the single most important non-caloric food. Electrolyte replacement, meat preservation through curing. The seasoning that makes everything else palatable when you've been eating bland stored food for 6 months. The Mormon Church has been telling its members to store 50 pounds per adult for a year of food security. The figure has not changed in 70 years because the math has not changed. Number 9, white granulated sugar. Sealed in Mylar, sugar lasts effectively forever. 1 pound is roughly 1,700 calories of pure carbohydrate the body converts to glucose almost instantly. In a crisis, that matters for cold weather, for shock, for sustained physical exertion, for diabetic emergencies. Sugar is also the foundation of every traditional preservation method that does not involve salt. You preserve fruit with sugar. You make wine with sugar. The serious preppers buy 50-pound bags and seal them in Mylar in 5-gallon buckets. They do not broadcast it because the moment a panic starts, sugar disappears from shelves in 24 hours. Number 10, non-fat powdered milk. The instant kind, in nitrogen-flushed cans or sealed Mylar. Powdered milk has a shelf life of 15 to 20 years if it is non-fat. The fat in whole milk powder oxidizes and goes rancid in 3 to 5 years. Non-fat is calcium, animal protein, the ingredient that lets you bake bread, make pancakes, mix into oatmeal, give to children. In a long-term crisis where dairy supply chains are broken, non-fat powdered milk is the only practical way to give a child the calcium they need for growing bones. Most prepper channels skip this because powdered milk has a less dramatic narrative than rice and beans. But the children's nutritional crisis is what destroys families in a sustained event. Number 11, raw apple cider vinegar with the mother. The mother is the cloudy strand of living acetic acid bacteria that floats in the bottle of real unpasteurized vinegar. The mother is what keeps the vinegar self-renewing, antimicrobial, useful for decades. Apple cider vinegar is salad dressing, meat tenderizer, preservation acid for pickling, medicine grade for wound cleaning, detergent, hair rinse. Raw apple cider vinegar, stored in glass, sealed, kept cool, has no practical expiration. About $6 a gallon at warehouse stores for the raw kind. 3 gallons in a basement closet is enough for years. Number 12, refined coconut oil. Not virgin, not extra virgin. Refined, sealed glass or metal container, kept cool and dark. Shelf life of 3 to 5 years minimum. Properly stored can extend to a decade. Coconut oil is 9 calories per gram. Shelf stable at room temperature, tolerates high heat for cooking without breaking down. In a survival scenario, fat is the limiting nutrient. You can store carbohydrates for 30 years, but most stable fats only last 3 to 10. Coconut oil is the best of a difficult category. Number 13, cornmeal, specifically masa harina. The secret that southern preppers know and northern preppers usually miss. Regular yellow cornmeal stores for about a year before the oils and the germ go rancid. But masa harina, which is cornmeal that has been nixtamalized, soaked in an alkaline lime water solution, stores significantly longer in sealed mylar, and there is a hidden nutritional reason. The nixtamalization process makes niacin, vitamin B3, bioavailable in the corn. Cultures that ate untreated corn as their staple, like the European colonizers who took maize back without taking the lime treatment, developed pellagra, a deadly vitamin deficiency. Cultures that nixtamalized their corn never got pellagra. If you store corn as a staple, you store masa harina, not cornmeal. And the urea crisis affects corn agriculture more than any other staple, so the price is moving up the fastest. Now let me get to the 14th one, the one nobody talks about, the one that, if you understand it, changes how you think about everything else on this list. Number 14, heirloom, open-pollinated, non-hybrid seeds. This is the meta food, the food that grows all the other foods. The reason serious preppers do not broadcast their full strategy online. Here is what most people do not understand. The seeds you buy at a typical garden center are hybrid seeds, F1 hybrids, engineered for that year's harvest. If you save seeds from a hybrid plant and try to grow them next year, you get genetic chaos. Maybe 10% of the plants produce, maybe none. The seeds do not breed true. This is by design. The agricultural industry has spent 80 years engineering this dependence. You buy seeds every year, forever, from them. Heirloom seeds, by contrast, are open-pollinated varieties that have been grown and saved by farmers for generations. They breed true. You save the seeds from this year's tomato, plant them next year, you get the same tomato. You do this for 10 generations, 20 generations, indefinitely. The Cherokee Trail of Tears, bean. The Brandywine tomato, the Hopi blue corn, the mortgage lifter tomato that a West Virginia mechanic bred in the 1930s to pay off his house. Foods with names and histories, designed by farmers, owned by no corporation, free to replant forever. Now connect this to the urea crisis. If synthetic nitrogen fertilizer supply chains break for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, industrial monoculture agriculture collapses. Wheat yields drop, corn yields drop. Supermarket shelves do not refill the way they used to. But the home gardener with heirloom seeds, manure, compost, and nitrogen-fixing legume crop rotation can keep producing food indefinitely, with no synthetic inputs whatsoever. This is exactly how every human civilization fed itself before 1910, when the Haber-Bosch synthetic ammonia process was invented. Heirloom seeds are the genetic backup of the human food system. The seeds themselves cost almost nothing. A complete heirloom seed library, 25 to 50 varieties, costs about $150 from companies like Baker Creek or Seed Savers Exchange. Stored cold and dry, properly dried, in sealed mylar with desiccant most vegetable seeds, remain viable for 5 to 10 years. Some, like tomato and bean seeds, viable for decades. This is the one nobody talks about on YouTube because there is no affiliate program. There is no $30 mylar bag to upsell. Heirloom seeds are the only entry on this list that the prepping industry actively does not want you to focus on. because once you have them, you eventually do not need the industry anymore. I have left a pinned comment with the 3 foods I could not fit into this video, along with the link to the complete survival research documentation, which covers storage protocols, calorie math, rotation, nitrogen fixing crops, and seed saving in full. Read it before you start spending money on the wrong things. One last thought. Foods 1 through 13 are how you survive the first 3 years of a sustained agricultural crisis. Food 14 is how you survive years 4 through 40. The serious preppers know this. They store the 13, but they also have the 14. They do not share their seed varieties online because the value of a Cherokee Trail of Tears bean lineage that has been hand-selected by one family for 80 years is incalculable, and they are not interested in seeing it commodified. If you are new to the channel, subscribe. We publish 2 of these every week, all based on verifiable data. No fear-mongering, no marketing scams, just the work. When the grid fails, knowledge doesn't. Stay quiet. Stay prepared. The fertilizer cascade is already moving. The window to buy at 2025 prices closes faster than people think. We'll see you on the next one.